Welcome to Salute and Biohacking podcast. My name is Vanessa Bertinotti and my mission is to build an Italian-speaking tribe that shares my same passion for health optimization and biohacking by bringing to the table experts and people who inspire me. All the information contained in this podcast is purely informative and does not replace medical or therapeutic consultancy. On this episode, I'm super grateful and excited to welcome Thomas Olivier Jaworski. Thomas Olivier is a sports scientist and ex-athlete. He's a registered nutrigenomics practitioner and the author of the book Cracking Your Health Code. Thomas Olivier is also the co-founder and CEO of Omnos. Omnos is a health platform designed to help people improve and optimize their health. Today we will understand how Omnos has shifted the focus of health from treating symptoms to a more efficient holistic prevention model using different health tests, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. For the listener of my podcast, Omnos has offered a discount code. Just head on omnos.me, omnos.me. Fill out the questionnaire to know which test to do first and use the code VANE10, VANE10, at checkout to get 10% off. Thomas, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Welcome. Very pleased to be here.
I'm really happy to have you here because it's a really important topic to me. I'm thrilled to have you here and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
First of all, before we dive in today's topic, can you tell us about your journey and how you got to where you are now, why you have decided to create Omnos and how this mission started?
Wow. Okay. So a journey, is always quite long, as you can imagine. So I will try to keep it to the essential. But I guess it's a combination of events and different things that prepared you to the next things always, right? But it all really started, and I think this is where I got the passion for nutrition. As I was an ex-swimming champion, as you just mentioned as well. And when I started, I grew up in sort of rural France, and this is where I was training. It was quite, back in the days, I would say. I'm not going to say my age, although, I'm not. I can say actually I'm 40 years old. So it was quite a while back. Nutrition was not yet for athletes something really we were looking at. It was crazy. The advice we would have is like to have a bowl of pasta before before training or this sort of thing, which actually for me was very bad because of certain genetic predisposition and this sort of thing. But I knew about all this later. But cutting the long story short, when I was swimming, and I was swimming quite intensively, when you're competitively, you compete, it was 2 hours minimum a day. When it was a school holiday, it was actually twice 2 hours a day. And you're starving all the time. And I remember going back from the training to walking back to my home, and there was this boulangerie on the way. This is rural France, and I used to have a baguette, and I had the pot of Nutella in my bag. And I used to take the baguette at the boulangerie. I had the knife and the Nutella, and I was having the whole baguette on the way back home, and that was just before dinner. So and I got to a point where I got very tired, and the doctors, it was like, oh, it's overtraining, you're training too much, you're growing at the same time, it's all a bit too much. But I knew it wasn't necessarily what it was, because I always trained the same way. But I then did my own research, and at the time Google was not a thing yet, but I was looking into things, and I started to look into nutrition. And that was what I realized, the first sport nutritionist at the time, that actually having very high carbs, just sugar, sort of based meal before competing was not necessarily the same thing, a good thing, sorry. And I've changed that, and it changed drastically my performance and my training and my mood, and I wasn't falling asleep at school the day after. So I didn't have this crash anymore. I was like, wow, this is powerful. And I guess this is where it all started, because I became very passionate about educating myself first, but then educating others on how to eat to train optimally. I think that was the first thing, and where I fell in love with nutrition. I think the second thing was a bit later, when I realized that my grandparents were getting old, and I was in charge of my bag to go and get them their medicine. And through the time, I mean, I used to have a whole backpack full of medicine, and they had no clue why they were taking those things. And I remember my grandfather saying, "Well, this is just the doctor telling me to take this, but I'm fine." And actually, he was saying, "No, actually, he's not fine when he's taking them." And it's this whole, thing that how we were not educated about our own health, and how we would follow blindly advice of someone who's been educated in this, but not necessarily educated in the sense of nutrition. But I think that was the second thing that, sort of made me look into this a bit deeper. But cutting the long story short, again, I then did sports science, but I also was doing a business degree. But I got very into training athletes, and this is where I actually moved in London. And I remember that was quite a day. It was actually the day after, I remember, so the date was 2001, I think, because it was the day after Le Pen arrived to the second tour. I remember that quite clearly. So I just decided, okay, that's it. I'm gone. Not talking politics, but I wasn't fitting with my mindset. And I just arrived in London, and I really got into the whole, training. And at the time, I was also doing a bit of martial arts, and I knew a few martial artists from quite high level, some world champion in MMA, and starting looking at nutrition and helping them along the way with my sports science degree. But then went back into working more in sales, so my business degree. And the thing is, I didn't like it much of what I was doing. I was actually very financially secure. But you've got to this point where, either you follow the dream and you're going to be financially insecure, or you're financially secure, sorry, and you are going to, be in a job that you don't really like. I made a choice after reading something about DNA for the first time, that I wanted to change everything, and I wanted to burn the boat and get uncomfortable, but be the first coach to offer DNA testing, to give personalized recommendation to athletes. Now, that was very wild at the time, because 23andMe wasn't even out there yet. And it was very expensive, and the only lab that were doing DNA testing were mainly for research or for looking at more disease related, right? So sequencing for disease, for cancer. But I knew there was a way of potentially looking at certain SNPs. We will explain what SNPs are, but certain gene variant that could tell you about your, potentiality to recover, for example, from training. Your potentiality, if you were more for endurance or power, your bone health, all those things, and those were, a trove of information for athletes that was very valuable, because it's just even valuable not only for having a targeted approach to their training, but also a peace of mind, which is something very important for athletes. And yeah, this is where it all started, really. Cutting the long story short, again, I contacted a lot of labs, harassed some of them to create a course to be educated about how to use those SNPs and implement this for athletes. I've started with a lab in South Africa. We put together a report, and I started with a few athletes, and it worked very well. I was very busy. Then I got into the idea to make a very successful business out of it, and I got into the wrong hand, let's say, partnered with the wrong people, but that was again a very good lesson for me to learn that actually you need to work with people that you can trust, and also for my own self that I need to be on top of my things. So this company has been sort of took away from me. The whole thing was patented and everything. And at this time, I had no choice but to retreat myself. But that really helped me to put things back in perspective and to really look at, okay, what we're going to do here. My mission always has been to educate people. It's about giving ownership of their health, and so their health is their responsibility. And I realized that there's actually a whole message out there. Let's write a book. Another wild idea. As a dyslexic in French, let's write a book in English. So I've done that, and it was a very good exercise for me to put everything in perspective. And this book was really an invitation for everyone to look at their own bio-individuality. To create this relationship with your own biology. Then you cannot really escape, because you realize, wow, this is me. Understanding that your health is your responsibility, and starting wherever you are in that journey for you with your own priority. So in that sense, you stop following trends. Why should you be a vegan if actually you have certain genes that will make you sick if you're a vegan, or at least if you're a vegan, you need to do this and that for you. If you follow a keto diet, actually for you, you better do keto, but with a bit of change here, because otherwise you're going to have some problems. So it was about this personalization. And at the back of this, one of my reader actually was my first investor in creating the 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐻𝐻 platform. And 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐻𝐻 was all about taking your 23andMe data, and instead of finding out that you were the cousin of Marie Antoinette and all those different things that were not very helpful, was more about an invitation to, okay, what are my top priority, and what habits could I learn to master my health, and how can I implement this? So it was about creating habits based on your bio-individuality, and the 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐻𝐻 platform was very successful. It was a very beautiful platform, and we started very well. And this is where, at the time, it was still at this point, I was still coaching and working on my dream, which was the 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐻𝐻 platform. But it was not revenue generating. It was just sort of testing the market. But then I always had the idea also to connect the dots with the functional medicine model. So, looking at all the other tests, so biomarkers from bloods, from organic acid test, from the Dutch test, which is the one of hormone test, element test, all those different things. But really connecting the dots in the sense that nothing works in isolation. And this is where I started to work with Imperial College and a few data scientists to try to put this together. And I got introduced to my now business partner and co-founder, Ben, by the lab we were using, because he did try to put the platform together, but failed, in a sense that, it's very complex. So I had the right team for that. But I was failing miserably in trying to connect the dots between everything, because it's a very hard work. But with his background of astrophysicist, Professor Higgs was his professor, he somehow managed to do that on an Excel sheet, which was, crazy to the data scientists I was working with. But cutting the long story short, we met, and I like to think about synchronicity and serendipity. We met, I was half an hour late, but as he would tell you, is the best excuse he ever had, because my son was just born that night. We met, we clicked on the mission, in the sense that we had exactly the same mission: to educate and empower people to take control of their health, giving them all the information in a way that is making the complexity simple, and all in one place. So we shook hands and we created Omnos, and worked very hard for a year to connect the dots and to digitalize everything on the platform that Omnos is now. So that's for the story.
Wow, it's so interesting, and your story really resonates a lot with me. So thank you for sharing. I think it will inspire many people. How do you see the future of health architecture? What will be the role of technology like artificial intelligence and machine learning? And do you believe that optimizing health will be affordable for everyone?
Yeah, so it's exactly what we're working on, and there's a way of doing it. So I'm actually writing an old book about it, at the dawn of a new health architecture. I mean, this is a temporary title, but the idea is now we live in such exciting time. I mean, AI, Chat GPT, all those things are coming up, and those are amazing tools to aiding hands to actually put everything together and help us to build really amazing tools. So we already, for Omnos, for example, use AI, and we're working on connecting the dots between data point and trying to do a lot of things with that. But the way I see the future of health, I think it's very important to make the distinction between acute care system, which we already have. Okay, so if I go outside and life gets very unfortunate, I get hit by a car, there will be amazing doctors that will do everything to save my life, and then from A to B, I'll come back home with my prescriptions, and the insurance is rolling, and everything is set up, like perfect machinery. That's the acute care system we have. But the acute care system we have is not equipped to deal with the disease we're dying of today, which are diseases that are, decline. So it's things like dementia, cardiovascular disease, most of the cancer, type 2 diabetes. All of those are things that are totally preventable by changing your lifestyle, your diet, and your environment. Even things like Alzheimer, which there is no cure to date. For example, there's Dr. Dale Brinsden, who has the first program to prevent and reverse the cognitive decline of dementia. And that is a real study. It's a real thing. He wrote 2 books about it, and it works. But trying to cure it is just impossible. It's too complex. So it's very important to understand, the distinction between those two systems. Then what we want to do is to be a lot more proactive towards prevention. And what we're trying to achieve here at Omnos, and what should be done, is to first democratize everything and decentralize everything from the healthcare system, that is the acute care system. If you want people to be proactive towards their health and be reactive in the sense that they do real-time intervention, we need to decentralize it from a system that is only treating acute care. That's my idea anyway. But then democratizing it means that you make the complexity of it all simple. And on my journey, obviously, I've been tagged and criticized, many times because I'm not a doctor. Why should I deal with genetics, and why should I deal with all those different things, and helping people getting healthy. But the reason I've done that is because the system in place doesn't do that. It's not a system to actually helping people to get healthy. It's is helping people to get better if they're sick. But before you're sick, nobody can help you. So is this first line here, what do you do when there's things that are imbalanced? Okay. There is things that actually you should look at because you're not in optimal ranges. So for example, on the Omnos platform, we only report on optimal ranges. If you go and see a doctor now, but everything is sort of okay, not in critical ranges, you're fine. You're the picture of health. But actually, if you're low in vitamin D, we know that many things won't work optimized, won't work optimally, right? It's the same many other things. So, but you're not in a critical state where you need acute care. So we won't look at you. You're going to be the picture of health, even if it's not the case. So I think the importance is to understand those big distinctions, and to have a system where everything is simplified, everything is in one place, and where people can be educated to take control of their health with one habit at a time, by order of priority, based on where they are now. And the way to do that is maybe to start by understanding, okay, where am I now? What is the symptom questionnaire that I could have, and or lifestyle assessment. And then it tells you, okay, well, then your top priority are this. Let's have a look at that. Let's test for your gut here, because you're talking a lot about brain fog, bloating, all those different things. Let's investigate here. Actually, the reason why you're low in iron is not because, you miss iron because you've been on iron tablet for 6 months that you've been prescribed by your GP, but actually because you have, a parasite that feeds on iron. So the first thing to do is to remove this parasite, because it's just going to make things worse for you, for your guts. You can even risk leaky guts, which can be the door to autoimmune disease. But obviously, you're not going to absorb iron if you have a hungry parasite that feeds on iron. So you see that there's all this level of hierarchy that is very important to understand. And the things that AI and all those, like technology can do once you digitalize everything, is to create this ecosystem where there's extra expertise. And I think when you say AI, it's very important to say that there was human programming the AI before, right? So we worked with hundreds of practitioners to, okay, what is the best scenario in this scenario? What is the best priority in this and that? So it's to really teach the machine to make the right decision and the best decision in different contexts. And I think this is where the future will be. It's about giving real-time, personalized, personalized recommendation. And even when I talk about decentralizing, and something I talk about in my book, in the long term, we could potentially even remove, you going to somewhere to be tested. So right now, we already sending tests to you at home, but the tests are urine samples, or a stool sample, or even saliva sample. It's all the things you can do in your bathroom. So maybe one day we'll be reinventing bathrooms, and everything works as an orchestra behind you, where you don't have to do much. You just go on with your life, and when things are a bit out of normal ranges, actually things can be synchronized around you to optimize you at different touch point. Meaning that if your data that you have gathered, if you go shopping, well, we will tell you actually your shopping list, you should have this and this and this. This is a 95% choice because of that reason and that reason. Dark chocolate actually is a good one because you're low in magnesium, you need potassium, you can have the little treat. But actually, tuna is not a good one for you because you have high mercury and you haven't removed your filling yet, so it's not going to help. It's all those different things, and you can have this create this ecosystem where you even work with shopping data and different things to optimize you at every touch point. And I think this is where the future is going to go. At least this is what we're going to trying to achieve, to really create an ecosystem around you, rather than you have to look at everything and because it's complex works to do. Even practitioners, the reason why a lot of practitioner works with the platform now, we have over 400 practitioners, functional doctors, even GPs working with the platform, because it's an aiding hand. It helps them to remove the smoke of everything, right? So it goes straight down into what are the top priority.
Yeah. Awesome. Now you have explained beautifully how technology can help us achieve our goal. But what is the mindset a person should have when it comes to health optimization? I think it's not, you have talked about responsibility. What,
Yeah.
how a person should be, and which mindset should he have to?
I think the first thing is to remove the things that we know are negative. So the quick fix mindset, the trends. You're going to follow trends because this person does that, I will do it, and go into something which is a bit of a higher level, I would say, not being scared of going on a journey, or where I am going to try to master my health. And mastering my health means that I'm going to take the long road. I'm going to educate myself, know where I am now first, actually. Where am I now? This is what am I? What I am. Yes, okay, I'm a couch potato. I'm overweight. That's okay. That's where you are now. So what are the next step for me? Actually, before taking supplements and doing testing and all those different things, if you don't do the basic right, if you sleep 5 hours a day or less, and you drink every night and you eat junk food, processed food, well, your starting point is to completely change this hygiene of life, because taking supplements is not going to do anything to you. Actually probably create more stress on your liver, or create more stress in your body, rather than do that. So the basics always first. And we can go to the very wide range of it. The basic can be to movement is very important, being close to nature, like seeing light in the morning rather than your phone. All those things are very important because it will set you up for a good night's sleep in the evening. All those different things. And then is to assess from, okay, let's have a look a bit deeper. And once you have done that, and okay, what are the next habits? What am I made of? A genetic test would be a good thing, because you understand your difference, and you create this relationship with your own biology, and you understand, okay, that what works for me, that's my weakness, is my strength. I shouldn't do that, and should avoid this, and that gives you already a sense of direction. And then it's all about, in that sense of direction, if you know that your detox pathways are not working optimally, to do everything in that, in that topic, to remove toxins of your environment, and maybe to test of what toxins you may have, and have a targeted protocol approach to it. So I'll give you an example. When I first started all this, and putting the dots with the platform, I was living near a very busy road, and my son was only a few months old. And when I saw my result, within the month we moved out. I had this, and I knew, because I was taking this, this road to go to the tube all the time, and I was walking along, and I knew the car fume was just, in the traffic, and it was just horrible. And I knew already from my genetic test that my detoxification pathways were not optimal. Living in London, very toxic city, I knew that already challenging very much my detoxification pathways. And then, so I looked into an organic acid test and toxicology, and my car fumes, so all the things related to car fumes, were way crazy above, the outside normal range, let's say, like crazy above it, like, times 10. And my glutathione, all the things that needed to be there to to remove all those toxins were non-existent. So I was just, I had liver toxicity, which is very bad long term. Potentially can trigger things like cancer with other things. So you don't want that. And as I said, I had a son, was only a few months old. Okay, let's get out of it. So I've changed my lifestyle, did a lot of saunas, a lot more of, supporting my liver with supplements and things. And when I retested, I was back to normal ranges. So it's very important to understand where you are at now, and to try to master. So the mindset again should be about, your own journey. Your health journey is not someone else's pathway. Where you are now, and start where you are now, and just bit by bit, give yourself a sense of challenging yourself over time, and go towards the mastery, right? So the old school, like a chef would learn how to cook over years, or a martial artist will learn his dance and belts, become black belt over years. So you want to become the black belt of your own health.
Awesome, yeah. So, as you said, many people want to get healthy, but they don't really know where to start. You have given some tips, and they don't know usually which test to do first if they want to try to do tests. And as you said, we are all very different, and what worked for me not necessarily work for you.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how Omnos platform has been designed and how it works in terms of process and the science behind it? Can you walk us through the user journey?
Sure. So it all starts when you go to omnos.me, and you create an account. You will have a lifestyle and a symptom questionnaire. So this symptom questionnaire is very important. It's a lot of question, but it's totally worth doing it. The reason why we insist, and actually people like doing it because 96% of our users are doing it fully, which we were very surprised about that. But because the question makes sense, and when you start, oh well, yes, I have that. Oh yes, I have that. Like, okay, let's dig a bit deeper, because that already gives you what should I start with, right? So you answer that question. Because we have a system behind all this, a scoring system, but will, direct where we should go next. Okay, so should I investigate my liver, my upper GI tract? Should I investigate my mineral status? Should I investigate my hormones? So all those answers that you have given will actually direct to what is the next best test for you, and we will give you the reason why. And then we will match. Once you do the test, you will have the result. And for example, oh yes, I have estrogen dominance from my hormone test, and this is why I've given those symptoms that I clicked, and other potential symptoms that I have not clicked are those ones. So it's all connected, and I think this is the hard work we have put together, but nobody does, is this interconnectivity between everything. So all the data point, if you wish. And this is why I always actually here, even behind me, I have a frame. I have two frames. One is make the new, and the other one is connect the dots, which has been given to me because it's something I repeat all the time. But it's very important to connect the dots, because this is how we work. Is we are not. Everything in our bodies is pathways and interconnectivity. and we are very complex. And there's the things we know. We work with the things we know, and that have been proven. And then there's the things we know we don't know, and then there's all the things we don't know. But we start understanding, all this, and potentially with the use of AI and machine learning, we make a huge leap of progress on all those things.
And so what makes Omnos unique compared to the other platform is that thing. So it's connecting dots.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So it's several things. So first is this, again, the interactivity between your your tests. So let's say I'll give you actually a concrete example. So let's say you're a 45 years old man. You somehow have a lot of brain fog, a lot more than normal, and you're a bit worried about it. In your self-assessment, symptom assessment, yes, you used to do rugby and you quite competitively, and you have answered that you had concussions. You also have in your genetic test genes like BDNF, ApoE4, which actually predispose you to higher risk of Alzheimer. Okay, and then you realize that actually your lifestyle is pro-inflammatory, in the sense that yes, you do drink a lot, you don't necessarily are moving lately like you used to, and you do other things that are not really going into your favor. So all those symptoms are flaring up. So you sort of predispose, when you link all the things together, it's like, wow, you have, and we can even tell that to a level of percentage, because we do a scoring system. Obviously, we are not diagnostic, and that's very important to understand. We're working on something diagnostic, but we are in partnership with a third party. But for the time being, we all about prevention, predictive prevention. So we won't tell you, obviously, your higher risk of develop Alzheimer, but we want to help you to go back into those reverse those trends, actually. So we will tell you, okay, because of that, you have all those different things. We're going to remove the inflammation. We're going to, by doing this and this. So looking at your insulin sensitivity, we're going to work on hormone balancing through the testing. So, and all the platform will actually help you to navigate through testing on what are your top priority. And then compare from test A to B where you are at. And then realize that once you do the symptom assessment, actually, yes, my brain fog have disappeared. I have now, got much better on this. I don't have those crash in the afternoon like I used to do, because I worked out my insulin sensitivity, and ate now have a diet that is a lot more appropriate to what I have and what I am, and that is very helpful because it's targeted, right? So how it works on the platform. So and I think the very much important the difference is this connectivity, again, between all the data point, that nothing works in isolation. And also one very important thing is every single test you do, you have a practitioner's consultation. So we give a free consultation for every single test, and you can even book further consultation. And we only recommend you, so let's say you do a hormone test, you will talk to a functional doctor that has a hormone, that's their specialty, right? And if you have a microbiome issue, it will be the same for microbiome. If it's something clinical, we will recommend you to your GP. So you can go and see, your GP with, okay, this is what I have.
Great. And can you tackle a bit more on the different tests available on the Omnos platform?
Sure. So I think there's different categories of tests first. Genetic, I like to think of genetic as a standalone, all right, because you do your genetic once, it will change over time. What will change is the expression of it, your epigenetic, by changing your lifestyle, your diet, your environment, but your genes won't change. So if you haven't done a genetic test, I think it is very valuable for everyone. Then all the other tests, as I said, is something that it's not necessarily, I mean, it's amazing if you do all the tests because you have the full picture, like it's full MOT, but sometimes not necessary. You just want to follow the process of the platform by self-assessment. You'll be recommending what are all the other tests. So the blood test, we have, for example, the Wellness 360, female or male, because there's a hormonal part which is a bit different from a male or female, and that is a full 58 biomarkers, 59 for the male actually biomarkers, and so you have all those different tests. Then you have the Wellness Advanced, which is around 25 biomarkers. And then we do thyroid blood test, the sex hormone, male and female. We even have a fertility and a hormone blood test, so focusing on fertility for women. And then we have all the different what we call functional tests, which again, we haven't reinvented the wheel here. The microbiome and zonulin test is a test that looks at 111 biomarkers, by the way, so it's huge. It looks at whether you have leaky guts, parasite, all these sort of things, your line of defense, your immunity in your gut, all those different things. And that's a stool sample, and that has been used, by functional doctors for years. We have the one that does also H. pylori. And then we have other tests like the envirotoxin, which is a urine sample. It looks at 76 markers and really gives you clear pictures of your environmental pollutants that affect your health, on top of looking at mitochondrial health, cellular health, all those different things. And with this is the one that I just mentioned, that you can determine where the toxicity coming from, whether it's solvent, paint, or it's coming from car fumes or plastic. If you don't realize you heat your meal in a plastic microwave, every day, and then you end up having a lot of BPA, so plastic, into your system. So all those things are dangerous, and we want to know about this, right? Then we have the element test that looks at all the mineral level, but that's very interesting because it also looks at your ongoing exposure to toxic element and look at the ratio between them. So, for example, I've already, as a kid, I mean, in France and pretty much everywhere, going to the dentist, we just remove teeth and put mercury in your mouth, which is, we know, very toxic. I had 6 filling, believe it or not. I had only 2 left, and they're big operations. I'm just waiting to have the time to do it. But when I've done this test, my mercury level were very high. So I've stopped eating tuna, and all those things were already high in mercury. But what also did is looking at other elements like selenium, like iron, so other heavy metal who are competing, realizing that my mercury actually depleting me of all those minerals. And that's quite important because selenium is a very important antioxidant, and I'm very low on it because of this mercury. So it's all those different things. So that's just an example. And then we have the hormone test, the Dutch test, which is look at a comprehensive assessment of sex and adrenal hormones and all their metabolites, really. It's quite complete. There's a lot of tests, but you don't have to do them all. But we recommend you which one you should do first.
Great. And talking about the genetic test, what are the SNPs? You talk a bit about the SNPs at the beginning of this interview. And what is the relationship between SNPs and the risk of developing disease?
Yes. So I think one thing to say first is to understand the importance of your genes are not your fate. Okay. I want to say that as a sort of disclaimer slash education piece, in the sense that it's not because you're predisposed to certain genes that you're necessarily going to develop disease associated to it. And I like to say that because there's still now some, marketing stunt or whatever you want to call it, but use this thing of, okay, oh, I had these genes, and my parents had Alzheimer, and I'm very worried. Yes, you should be, but actually, it's your lifestyle, your diet, your environment that dictate the results. It's not the gene. The gene is a predisposition, yes, but you can reverse this predisposition by being proactive. And I'll give you the example that when I used to have the 𝐬𝐮𝐬𝐜𝐫𝐢𝐛𝐞 Academy, which was something I was educating practitioners about nutrigenomics, is the study of the twins. It's a real study, right? But I'll make it a different way. But imagine you have two twins, it's identical genetic makeup, but one is working in a city job, 12 hours a day, very stressed out as a lawyer. The other one, so they've been separated at birth. And the other one is working in a circus, decided to, more, moving all the time, every day, eating good food, being very careful about what they eat and everything. The other one is, in the environment, is alcohol, sugary food, and processed food. You put them back 40 years later, they are two different human beings. Although they have the same genetic makeup, because it's the lifestyle that has shaped the outcome, right? So it's very important to understand this. And the SNPs, to come back to your question, is there's different SNP for different things. So you have a number of SNP that will affect. So first, let's explain a gene. So you have your whole genome, okay, and I can give you the story of the very, very big and the very, very small. But in one cell, and you have trillions of them, 5 trillions of them. If I zoom into one cell, I will have inside the nucleus, and inside that nucleus, I will have the DNA nicely wrapped up, okay? And actually, you have 6 foot tall in each and every single cell of yours, right? And we have trillions of them. So if I unpack this DNA material, you can go to the moon and back several times, which is the crazy thing about it. But in this big thing, you have genes. Genes are sentences of this book, okay, made of letters called A, C, G, and T. So that's your base pair. And a SNP is a component on that gene, a location, that code for something. So how are you going to process fat? How are you going to, detox? How are you going to? All of this is predetermined by your genetic makeup, and that's what we call the SNPs. The SNPs are single nucleotide polymorphism, are the things that code for something, and that's only 0.1% of your DNA material. Remember how big it is, well. So the rest doesn't really code for things, but it's archives. We used to call this junk DNA, but I think, remember when I was saying the things we don't know, I think there's a lot of discovery to be made on how those things interact with your environment, and already there's a lot of things, but even vibration could, we know vibration can have effects on your genes, or that's why it's also, there's a lot to discover here yet. But these SNPs are the things that are coding for something, and we look at those SNPs in all different areas. For your health, for example, there's the obvious things that are not for your health, like your eye color, your hair color. That will be the difference between those letters, okay? And if you have a TT variant, let's say, on something, you might be good at, I don't know, detoxifying certain things. If you have a, AG variant, you might have what we call a deletion, and you're not going to be good at that. So it's understanding all those differences and what makes you unique. And then when you put all of this together and looking at, I don't know, for example, insulin sensitivity, which is very important for type 2 diabetes, all of those genes, like I had, you remember the baguette? I have a very high tendency to be type 2 diabetes. But because I used to obviously swim a lot, so I was very active, I never had this thing of, I have the FTO gene. I've changed my expression, and I'm not an obese, right? Because FTO, we have tagged the obesity genes. However, if I'm eating sugary stuff, I will just spike my insulin very quickly, more than someone else that doesn't have those gene variants, and crash. So feel very tired about it, and have sometimes the shakes, So I've adapted my lifestyle, my diet, my environment to this. And I make sure I always have high protein. I do intermittent fasting sometimes to work on my metabolic flexibility to help this gene to express normally. Okay, and that's a group of genes, is FTO, DLB2, like all those different things. And then, I have certain genes that also doesn't help me to do that. So I have a gene that I like to call the Labrador gene, which has to do with your dopamine pathway, MCR. So this gene is, the death to buffet syndrome. If you put a buffet of food in front of me, it's very hard for me to contain myself. And when I start eating, I just have really to challenge myself to stop, right? And then it has to do with all the dopamine pathways as well. So it's a rewarding system. And because I've got those high as well, so genes like DRD2, DRD4, which has to do, so it's this whole thing together, this group of genes, wired me to be a very good hunter-gatherer back in the days. But now that, food is very easy to get, I don't necessarily need to pack on those food very quickly. So I have to teach myself to, be a lot more mindful eater, I would say. So that's an example. Then you have different SNPs for, I don't know, we talked about Alzheimer's. So you've got BDNF, IL-6, ApoE4, who are all to do, some with inflammation, with growth factor in your brain cell. So all those things are important. So you will have under a category a very long list of genes. I think it's important, and that's something we do very well, and we make sure to do that, is to use something called the polygenic score, because you have a lot of testing company out there that will tell you black and white things by looking at few of those genes, but not the whole sum of all the genes. And sometimes it can be wrong advice. And that is not ideal.
Yeah, thank you for explaining all this, what is behind SNPs. I did also an episode about genomics, so in Italian, to explain how it works, but you did a brilliant work on giving also some great examples, so thank you. As you said, there are many companies in the world that offer DNA tests, and there are substantial differences between one test and another. Can you explain what role artificial intelligence model and machine learning play in this ecosystem, and how accurate are the results of Omnos DNA test?
Yeah. So again, I think it's comes back to this interconnectivity always. If you start looking at things in isolation, it's just not the way our body is set to work. Nothing works in isolation. So back to what I was saying earlier, if you have certain gene variants that predispose you to something, but actually the sum of all those genes related to that topic, wherever it might be, let's say type 2 diabetes, doesn't necessarily mean that because you have one of what we call the star genes, that you are highly predisposed to that. And actually, also, if you exclude the lifestyle of the person, yes, you're going to start making assumption, and you don't have this nuanced approach that will ultimately be be faulty. So again, this is where artificial intelligence and machine learning, for example, as well, is very important, because sometimes there's a hell of a lot of data to take into consideration. And for us humans, with our brain, but we're good at programming those machines. So while we do that, the machines can look at the smoke of all those data and make some things a bit more clear. I like to think of, like, when you have fog over a city, when you start dissipating and you can start seeing the silhouettes, and then everything comes clear. This is what machine learning does, is to remove all the fuss, the mess, the guess around it, and make it a lot clearer. And this is what we've been doing with to explain it in a very easy way, with Omnos, is to use technology to just do that, and using the latest validated science process like polygenic scoring and all those things, which are very important, because otherwise you can be giving wrong advice. And anybody that will give you personalized recommendations on how you should eat or what type of diet you should have, just looking at genetic data without understanding, where you are, what age you are, all those different things, can be wrong, right? So what is your history as well? Because I've seen this. I've seen, people being recommended certain things, and because their thyroid issue was completely wrong for them, just because of one gene. But obviously it's very wrong, because it's okay. Well, you should not do that because you are this age, you have this condition, and actually you're not in that level where So it's very important to take again in consideration all aspects of things. And this is what we're striving to do. And there's no regulation, which is, I think, very important to say when it comes to genomic right now, although it's starting to be, but we've been doing this for years as self-regulating. For example, was the only one in the UK to provide a consultation with your genetic testing with someone who is actually graduated as nutrigenomics or genetic. So that's a big difference. And again, there's all these things of understanding that your genes are not your fate, because it can be quite worrying, but there's no worry to have, actually, is being empowered, because again, your genes are not your fate. So yeah.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Is a test that gives you an idea about yourself, but then you have to work on other paths to understand much more, and on your lifestyle, etc. And as you said before, a DNA test is done only once, usually in a lifetime, because our gene won't change. As you said earlier, a DNA test helps us identify our weaknesses and our strengths to make changes in our lifestyle, our environment, and our nutrition, to change really the expression of our gene and prevent disease. As a biohacker, I already done a DNA test. So my question is, can I import my DNA test into the Omnos platform, or should I redo my DNA test to have everything on one platform, on your Omnos platform, for example?
So that's something that we like to do our own test, because it's very complete. So, for example, if you were to upload 23andMe, I'm talking about 23andMe because it is the most common DNA test. I think there's over 30 million people who have done 23andMe test. You will only have around less than 60% of all the genes that we report on. So you will have, in that sense, a lot of missing data that could be very, very helpful, right? And that's why we use, but the platform will tell you. Okay, we have tested for this, but we don't have the full picture for this because you're missing this and this and this genes. However, we are putting together a system that you can upload all your data, especially for all the other tests, the functional test. As long as they are not over a year or even 6 months for some, it can be still valuable. So if you have done the microbiome test, we can, and it's the same test that we do. With a practitioner, you can upload those data, or we can do that now manually for you, but we're working on a system that you can upload those data directly. But when it comes to genetics, it's different because it's very complete what we do. And a lot of tests out there are just looking at a very, very small amount. And there's also different way of doing it. So it depends of what tests you have done, really.
Okay, so I will talk about this maybe offline. So maybe you can answer my specific to give me advice on the specific test I did. And what is the
well? If you have, we like to offer consultation. We are very human centered, although we all AI and we all but it's very important that the human touch is here and we keep it very strong. We have a lot of practitioners working on our platform, and we offer pre-consultation. Even if you have something, you can reach out to us, support@omnos.me, and book a pre-consultation. If you have data, we can organize things. We're quite flexible this way.
Great. And what is the difference between the hormone dry urine test, also called the Dutch test, and the sex hormone blood test?
Okay, so the blood prick test, direct hormones in the blood. Okay, so what's actually flowing in your blood. So measuring the actual thing, giving a direct measurement of hormones, and therefore it gives a bit of a better representation of how all pathways are acting in more of an overview manner, right? Whereas the Dutch test is metabolized. So it means that the pathways that those direct hormones are being processed through, if it makes sense. So for example, with estrogen, a very important hormone, that can tell you can get a better idea of how the brain is stimulating estrogen control with blood, rather than the Dutch test. You get a better understanding of how the liver is processing the estrogen, right? So through the pathway, and what impact that it has basically on inflammation, estrogen function, and also methylation. So I appreciate there's all sort of complex term, but realistically, the idea is of overview of pathways, okay, versus details of metabolism between the two. So I hope it makes sense.
Yeah, perfect. And what is the best time in the cycle to take the sex hormone complete female blood test?
So the best time to take this blood test, well, it depends actually on also. There's some, I would start with this first. There's a lot of people who do the test who don't necessarily have a normal cycle, right? So it's important that you do that when you can, when is the case. Then it's very important also to make sure you're hydrated. Okay, so you fasted and hydrated, and then it's for the blood test. It's really is looking at all the combination of all those markers, covering many areas. And the best time to do the test is all on. We also give it as well in the prescription. It's usually before, obviously, your cycle. But all the instructions, it's very nuanced. So all the instructions are inside the box, and we give it to everyone. But ideally, yes, it's before the cycle.
And what if a woman is already following a hormone replacement therapy? Does she has to stop the therapy before doing the Dutch test or the
Well, you
sex?
just have to. There's a form that comes with the test, and then you have to fill the form with all the different nuance that goes with it, right?
Oh, okay.
So if you're on replacement therapy, you just notify it.
Okay.
Yeah.
But you continue to follow it anyway, just
Yeah,
you
yeah.
notify. Okay.
Yeah, and you can also we also provide Venus draw, right? So and as hormone fluctuates during the day due to natural daily rhythm and cycles, we do that in the morning for the greatest precision. So also one thing to say ideally is you want to do those tests in the morning.
Great. And why testing hormone is also important for males and not only for females?
Well, there's one big thing now I realize, and it's funny. The whole CrossFit crowd love our sex hormone test because it looks at testosterone, all those different things for male, which are all very important. And I think it's important. There's a stigma thinking that it's hormones is a female problem. Obviously, it's not, and actually, it's becoming a very important male thing to investigate. Especially, we know that men now are less and less getting less and less testosterone.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be for the reason, probably because of a very polluted environment and stressful environment, different stresses. But all of these are very important for a male as well to check the hormone. So and the blood test. So even the male blood test. Sorry. Is one of our, for male, is the second most popular test for sex hormone, and it really gives you a whole insight of how your hormones are behaving, your stress level, and where it's coming from, how you can do that. I mean, what can you do to change all this? So yeah, and it's also investigating the same biomarkers than the sex hormone complete female, but we also add the PSA, so the prostate specific antigen. With November campaign just been finished, we know that prostate cancer is quite an important thing to do. So you also check for that. So yeah. And it's also looking at investigates the sort of relationship of psychological and physiological stress related symptoms that impact sexual health as well.
Great.
I think that's why it's quite it's quite a good test for male.
And how often should we repeat some tests if we want to optimize our health and prevent disease?
Again, it all depends on it's the unique response for everybody. It depends also of the test. So certain tests like a microbiome, would do it once a year. You don't need to do that every month, right? Now, blood tests, looking at all minerals, looking at sex hormones. If you have hormones issue, it's worth doing that every 3 to 4 months. So in between, it gives you enough time to make changes that count and see how it has affected, whether it's your personalized supplementation strategy that your platform has been recommended, as well as what you should be doing or what you should be avoiding. And once you implement all those things, you maybe want to check 3 months later how it has affected you. And then, so it really depends of the different tests. As we said, like genetics is only once. Then environmental toxin is depending of the results. But if you want to check about your toxicity, liver toxicity, all those different things, which also we checked in the sex hormone, the Dutch test, by the way. You want to maybe, if it's very high, you maybe want to be on top of this and really be almost aggressive at implementing the right recommendation, and maybe retest 3 months after that. So it depends of where you are, how bad it is, I would say. But because we're all about prevention, is never clinical. But sometimes, we do have cases where to us it's pretty much clinical, but because you're not yet breaking down, so I'll give you an example. Myself doing all this, when I first did my first sex hormone male, before I had my results, I have someone from Omnos, so who's running the things, a colleague, calling me, Thomas, you need to slow down. You are clinically, burnout, and I knew that. But when you look at the results, it was very powerful because yes, I had really all the sign of being burnout. I didn't feel much like it, but I knew I was working way too much hours, very stressed out. But that was my journey doing that. But I had to change things over time, because I want the sustainable journey here. I don't want to have a sort of breakdown halfway through trying to put this together, right? So yes.
So interesting. And Omnos is based in the UK. Which tests are available outside the UK and which one are not?
So all the functional tests, so the genetic test, as well as the urine sample, stool sample, depending on the countries, because it's time sensitive, but we can organize courier, are all available abroad. However, the blood prick tests, for the time being, they're all UK based, because they're very much time sensitive, except if we have certain clinics that we work with, worldwide. So we work with a few clinics. If they have a centrifuge or this sort of things, logistic can be established, let's say. Otherwise, it's especially for the blood prick test, it needs to be local based.
And are you planning to create a larger network of facilities around Europe to make all the tests available?
Definitely. As we grow, especially because we have more and more clinic using our test, we are also in retails. So we are in Selfridges, for example, in London, going to be in pharmacies. So it's we're definitely expanding the networks of abroad as well. And a lot of practitioners are already located abroad using our test.
Great. And when I talk about artificial intelligence and machine learning, many people are concerned about the privacy of their health data. Who owns the data in Omnos?
So that is something that I am actually campaigning as very strongly. And in Omnos, you can be guaranteed that first we take data very seriously, but your data is at all point your ownership, and we're going to go a bit further than this. It's something that is very strong to my heart, because there's a certain company that you do a test and they attract you with a bait pretty much. Oh, well, this is cool. I'm going to find out about those funny things. But then the whole business model is to sell your data to third parties, which we don't do. And it is in our terms and conditions. But then, because health data are very valuable, right? And this is why, back in the days, one of the the biggest transaction, even 10 years ago with Fitbit and everything being bought by big companies, is because the health data are very valuable. It's actually more valuable than oil, and it's been for over 10 years. And what I would like to do is to create an ecosystem, actually, in Omnos, and we're working on it now, that you will be able not only to have, you already have total ownership of your data, but you can right now delete your data, or you can just have access to all of them. But what I'd like to do is pretty much your health, your wealth, if it makes sense. So enabling data sharing, so data sharing made personal and rewarding. So what I mean, you can potentially opt in or opt out to share certain type of your data. So let's say you only want to share genetic data. We will have you marked as you want to share that, but we will be only working with research institute, and we're already tying up some partnership there. So contributing to the better of mankind, let's say. In a sense, I'm not going to go into the whole conspiracy theory of like pharma and everything, but a data set can be up to £80,000 of valuable just for genetic data, right? And like a lot of companies are trading those data, and this is where the goal is for them. But I think if we want to, and my mission again is to democratize this, to make this a lot more accessible to everyone and effective to anyone. I would like to create a system where you can share your data, but to participate for research. And then you can be paid for tests, or you can even receive, discounts, or even just compensation, monetized. And then if you want to opt in to share your blood markers, your questionnaire data, your history, your biometrics, even your HRV and all those different things, and even your medical for further even research, you will earn more. But what we would like to do, the reason why we want to do that is because then potentially by creating a relationship with the labs or research institute we already talking to, which are open to that, is we could benefit people who cannot access those tests for, because money reason, they cannot afford it, potentially could have access to those services for research, but at the same time they could optimize their health and have done a genetic test, have done blood test to optimize their health and be educated about that. So that will be the end goal of this all, and creating a platform where you could trade pretty much your health data, but you have total ownership of it, and you are the one decided whether you want to do that or not.
Sound exciting. And I have two questions left before I let you go. What are the habits that have changed your life? Can you tell us about one or two habits?
Yeah, sure. So it's funny, I was thinking about that. Like, it's not just one habit, but it's what I have decided to do quite a while ago now, coming back to when I was burning out, to divide my days into 12 hours for the business, 12 hours for me. And I include sleep, at least 8 hours there. But the rest is, the other hours is composed of different things. I fit in meditation. I fit in the usual, training session. Or swimming. I vary. I still swim. I like to swim in the sea. I do swim. I do training. So training will be lifting mainly, and I do sometimes yoga and meditation. Those are the main things that I do pretty much on a daily basis, and obviously spending quality times where I'm with my son playing, like I'm the same age as him. I'm not with my phone. I'm just a 4 years old kid, and that are very important for balancing. So what I'm saying here is one of the best things that I have done, I think, is not okay. I'm going to train. I'm going to do that. Is to have divided the time for me first, and then for the business, and then this time I sort of fill it with things that I know will benefit myself and good habits over time that I've built. And now if I don't do it, it doesn't feel right. It's not my day. So I need to do it. And obviously there's more difficult day than others, especially when it's winter and you want to go for a swim. But the benefit I get from it, swimming outdoor in the sea is just phenomenal. So it's just become addictive.
Wow. It's a great advice, I think, for many of us. And is there a book or person that has inspired you in your journey?
Well, that's a difficult one because I wouldn't say it's one book or one person. I've read a lot of books, and I still do. So it's really the succession of stories. What I like in books is I will look at people who really reshape their environment and then make the new, and no matter what, go through those heroes' journey. So I think this is what inspires me when people are brave enough to do that. And I guess I had that in my family very early age, with two of my grandfather and my great uncle being very much involved in the war and had this crazy story, crossing borders and being Russian front and all those things, being resistant for my great uncle and having come through all those very strong adversities and still managed to somehow make it. And then so it's more this hero's journey, I would say. Actually, this is what inspired me the most, is how people through adversity, and you can see those story every time, and those are the stories that really very inspire you, because okay, that was hard and they made it. For now, for example, I had a friend who had a very severe cycling accident, and 6 months down the line he's started walking again, and that's his journey, but that inspired me very much, for example.
So thank you, Thomas Olivier. It was a real pleasure to have you here. You open up also our awareness and our consciousness about all these important topics. And so I thank you very much to being here. And I leave all your contacts in the show note of my podcast. Thank you again.
Fantastic. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.